Welcome to the first episodes of Cruz Talks. I'm your host, Fidel Cruz, co-founder of the Cruz Family Creations. Today I'll be introducing myself, and this will be like episode one of the Cruz Talks, the military and other topics. I'll just be going over just myself, introducing myself, just giving myself a little background for those who don't know me. My name is Fidel Cruz. I was born and raised in New York City. I've lived and resided in San Diego. I've lived in Hawaii. I'm currently in Germany. I've just lived in multiple different places due to being in the military. My military service includes I am a staff sergeant now, promotable, which is basically saying that I'm ready for the next rank. But since I'm deciding to move away and leave the military, basically it's going to be just leaving the military after 10 years. Served in Hawaii, served in Fort Riley, Kansas, or Hawaiian Schofield Barracks, and Tower Barracks here in Grafenwehr, Germany. And those are the three duty stations I was lucky enough to, I guess, pick and live in. My time in service has been doing chemical specialist, which basically does chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear deterrence, advising, training, or whatnot. But most of the time, I just do paperwork, to be honest with you. Most of the time, with our job series, we don't really end up doing our job unless we're in the chemical unit, but that'll be something that I'll explain down the road. And just to go into the topic of just like retention, which is a big topic now going on within the military. Just to give a back brief and just give people like the information as to how I came into the military, why I came into the military, stuff like that. So just let's get it started. Okay, so why did I join the military? A lot of people have different views, different reasons, different motivations. Some it's a family tradition. For others, it's something that they always wanted to do, something that they get inspired to do. For me, it was more of a situation where I just needed to find employment. Best way of putting it. Basically, I used to work as a sales manager, and once I was a sales manager, basically at a storage deluxe, it was a storage facility. We worked there, and then they ended up selling off the company to another storage industry name. And then from there, there was a couple of things that changed, work environment, stuff like that, and it just wasn't for me. So I lost the job. But then I still had responsibilities. I still am my father of my oldest, and I needed to have a job in some sort of employment. So I figured one thing that I knew I wasn't going to lose was the military. I've had previous friends that had joined before, so I figured let me give it a shot. So my thing was, it was like, hey, what can I do to enlist as soon as possible? So enlisting came down to basically which branch can ship me out the quickest. I wasn't really interested in the Navy due to the fact that I wasn't that great of a swimmer then. I'm a better swimmer now, but definitely I'm not good at treading water. So like floating and stuff like that is like I'm like a rock. I just sink directly to the bottom. So kind of got me wary about joining the Navy. So I decided to go away from that. I went to the Air Force, talked to the Air Force recruiter, which was what I should have done, and just waited. But things happen for a reason, I guess. But yeah, I went there, went to the Air Force. The Air Force was like, yeah, we can ship you out in like a year and a half to 2 years. And I'm like, that's a long time for me to wait. I'm gonna probably end up in trouble or something in that case if I have to wait that long. Then I went to the Army, the Marines. Was not going to join because of my first marriage. She was a former a Marine because they're always Marines, as they like to put it. Yeah, so that didn't work out well. So I seen that environment, which wasn't probably any different than the Army was. But I decided let's go with the Army. The Army I went, and it's funny. The funny story about being with the process is like basically you have to show up to a recruiting station. You show your interest and stuff like that. They make sure that you want to continue to come back. They want to make sure that you're not just gonna up and leave and decide to, you know what? Yeah, I'm interested, but no, this ain't my life style or my choice in path right now. So they make sure you keep coming back. And it's funny because I went to the recruiting station. It was a recruiting station on 120, was it 125th or 116th? I can't remember what street it was on. I believe it was on 125th. And we went and there was a couple of people that were in the process, and it was just like they had us as a select group because it was that one recruiter that we had, Sergeant Sutton, which he's still around. I've seen him, he's retired now. But yeah, so we were just there. You go through the motions of basically they do like an assessment. They want to see how many push-ups you can do in a minute, how much you can run in a minute, sit-ups you can do in a minute. So they do those assessments. So it was like it dawned on me because I've always been athletic, always been playing basketball, baseball, any kind of sport and stuff. So I was always in good shape, but I was always a sprinter. I was fast as a sprinter. I never was a big long distance runner. So when it was just like, oh, you got to run 2 miles, I was just like, okay, I should be able to do 2 miles. It was like I played basketball for hours on end. But it's different because it's like spurts here and there. You get a breather. With running longer distances, it's like you're just running, which wasn't very motivating, I'll say. It still isn't motivating till this day, but it's something, you do. And it was just like you did those assessments, and I would just go because I live by not too far from Yankee Stadium. So basically, I would run from my house all the way to Yankee Stadium and back. And that was like a 2 mile distance, and it had like a hill, uphill, crossing the bridge and stuff like that. So it helped me and it helped me work past that to make me like improve a bit. I never really got good at it at that point because I was always stuck in my head like trying to do this 2 mile run, and I was just like, yeah, I got this, and I would like lose motivation. I guess you lose track of what you're focusing on at times, or at least I did like in that moment, because life was still ongoing and situations and stuff, so it makes it difficult to like concentrate. But you set that goal, and I was just like, you know what, I need to run these 2 miles. So at the end of that, I did eventually end up doing that. But we ended up going to this recruiting station. And I say we because it's funny because I am tied for first when it comes to joining the military. And I didn't realize I was running for the same position or the same title until I was at that recruiting station. So at the recruiting station, we had my cousin, which was there basically throughout the whole process and everything. We would meet up because we had certain days you had to show up, and they would do assessments or just like talk and try to introduce you to like the lingo, the rank structure, and all that stuff. So it came down to one point where it was like maybe you were like a couple of weeks from shipping out to MEPS to go do that stuff. I did the ASVAP and all that. Got pretty good scores, GT score of 120, which is basically I forget what the GT stands for. I've always forgotten. But basically that's the criteria that they show that allows you to show that you can learn different aspects and different jobs. And basically if you have anything over a 110, it opens up the realm of any job in the military for you to pick from. The examination isn't too hard, so it's you just go about it. But you go from there, and then we're in the same recruiting station, all that, and it gets to a point where I go home, and my mom is like, "Hey, your cousin, Fausto?" I was like, "Yeah, he's joining the army," and I'm like, "Hold on." I was like, "This guy looks like he looked familiar from the get." I hadn't seen him in who knows, maybe like close to like 8, 9 years the last time I had seen him. So I didn't know that was him. So we go and my mom is explaining to him, like, yeah, he's joining this, and that. And I'm like, so then the next time we go to the recruiting station, we're like, oh, you're my cousin. So it was funny because the recruiter was just like, hold on. Y'all mean to tell me y'all been here this whole time and y'all had no idea y'all were cousins? And we were like, no, we I hadn't seen him in years. He hadn't seen me in years. So it was like we looked familiar to each other, but we didn't. But it's just like, hey, you're in the neighborhood, you're walking down the street, you might see somebody that looks like, yeah, I've seen him before, but we did it like that. So then from there they take you to the MEP station. You go to your MEP station, and from there it's a different it's like that's when you know it's like real, basically, because they start in processing you. You sign up, you raise your hand, you pledge, and you start noticing that it's a bit realer. And then from there, that day, you have your bag packed, you have your stuff, and then you get on the bus. You end up on that bus, and it's a decent bus ride to get to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And you just on the bus and you see it and you go, you're on the bus and you get there and you realize that it's like I'm really joining the army. It's just like you really I'm really doing this. And then it's like you get there and the first 3 days you don't get to sleep. Most people don't understand that. It was like if you do sleep, you got lucky and you like dozed off for a bit and you're able to get maybe like 5, but they don't let you sleep. You're awake for most of like I believe it was 3 days. At least that's what it felt. It felt like that, and I believe it was 3 days, but they don't let you sleep because they in process you. They get you all your stuff. You go uniforms. You're waiting. You're sitting. And me and my cousin, we ended up on the same bus. We thought we were going to be in the same like company training, but he ended up going to a different company. I ended up in another. And we did that, and it's like you're in basic training now. You get your uniforms, you get all that stuff, and then from there you get assigned to your drill sergeants. You get your duffel bags, and you got to get your duffel bags, and it wasn't too hectic. There's if you can see there's a bunch of like shark attack, which they don't do anymore. They've changed that. They don't have people like screaming. They still scream at people, but not the same. The military has changed in the 10 years I've been in. Just the stories of how different it was, because like having cell phones, people have cell phones now. I never had a cell phone. I never had phones. Cell phones weren't even that big at that point, but there was only two phone calls I got while I was there. And the first one was basically like letting my family know, hey, I'm good. I'm in basic training. And then they took my phone away. And then the second one was when I called basically to let my family know where I was at. But that's a whole different situation within itself there, which I'll get to that part like while I was in basic. So yeah, I was one of the older people when I joined. I was 27 when I joined. There was a couple of older people within the group also. You got switched off until you had your company, Bravo Company, 313, Infantry Battalion, which I didn't wasn't gonna be infantry, but it's just like that was the name of the company, and that's how they go to be known that way. And it was four different platoons. I had two drill sergeants. The drill sergeants were Drill Sergeant Brantley and Drill Sergeant Nazardine. To this day, two of the best NCOs I ever had, and I guess you could say, tried to emulate what they taught me in that little brief 2 month period of how to be a person that cares and takes care of their soldiers. And you see the difference in tutelage basically from what you got from them. And if a lot of people did that, they went forward. I also say that from a lot of the people that I joined with in the military, a lot of them ain't in the military anymore, which is not surprising, but surprising, because a lot of it's just like you find it pretty crazy the fact that it's like you are one of like the long-standing ones that stayed around. Was I gonna do 20 years? Yeah, the thought process was there, but didn't happen. With basic training, it was basically you had it was a way to like break people down but build them up at the same time, I guess is the best way of explaining it. Due to the fact that it's like you're trying to be taught how to be a soldier. Drill sergeants are some of the toughest jobs that the military does have to offer, because these people don't really get time to themselves. Most of the time they're up at like 4 in the morning waking our asses up, and then they go back home like at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So they maybe get like 5 6 hours, and most of the time that's just to sleep. They don't really have that time. The only time they do have is like they'll pull a 24-hour shift, which is like they'll be on staff duty, they call it, or CQ, which is charge of quarters, which they'll be in charge of just making sure nothing crazy happens and stuff like that. And then they usually get a 24 hour period the next day off, and then they're back at work the following morning. So you get that depending on how many days a week they had it. Sometimes they have it like once a week, twice a week, depending how they had it. But they would try to give them like that break so that they weren't working every day. But it is still a stressful job because you're dealing with civilians. You're dealing with people that have never don't know what the army is, don't know what army structure is, don't know the lingo, don't know the rank. Some people have never had people to instruct them. Some people didn't know, like those people in basic training that you ran into, that it was just like some people didn't know how to shave. Some people didn't know how to mop a floor, sweep, do laundry. Some people didn't like to shower, which that alone, I think it explains it in itself. And some people just like hygiene wise, they didn't know what they were doing. It was just like it was a very eye-opening basically feeling and thought process, just being able to see all that stuff, like just people from literally all over the country and some from other countries that were getting their naturalization to become residents of the United States. and you can tell the difference. And you've seen like the people, like you literally have people from all over the country that would be at this location, and you had people that was just like, had the cultural differences, society differences, just upbringing was different. Some people were aware of, I guess, different races. Some were not. Some came from communities that it was like a mostly white community, and they maybe had like one or two black people there. Some it was just like communities that it was just like nothing but black people, couple white people here and there. Spanish communities where it's mixed. Like basically each ethnic group had their own thing where it was just like they weren't used to that. They weren't used to having such a diverse crowd. And I think one thing, being born and raised in New York City, I think helped with the fact that it's just like, yeah, I was able to see that. And it was just like, it wasn't a new experience for me, especially since I joined a bit older. But you have kids, and I call them kids because sometimes I'll call them my kids, because they were like 17 and 18-year-old. That was a 27-year-old. So I had experienced life. I had gone through stuff, was through the dark times, went through the good times. And a lot of these kids were just like kids. They didn't know how life operated really. It was just like kids. So it's like you get split up into these four platoons, and you have certain platoons that are differentiated. And it seems like the way they break it down, I was just like looking back now, it was like the platoons was separated by like knucklehead. And when I say knuckleheads, it's like the ability to like listen and the inability to listen. Because it seemed like the people that didn't want to listen were in certain platoons, and then the people that were more like, how would you say it? I don't even know how to put it. More understanding, I guess you could say, of what the situation is and what they were doing. That's what it is. But yeah, that was a moment that it was just like, you know what? I can't really put it into words because it's just like it's like you have to be there kind of thing. It's certain experiences you could talk about, and you go through basic training, you see things, you do things, and some things is just like you just had to be there to experience it. Just having these drill sergeants with their hat, and it's just like them just commanding power and authority just without you realizing that they were commanding that authority. Just because you were like scared shitless of them. You didn't know what to expect. It was just like certain times it just happened that they would like discipline you just because they want to discipline you. It was like, you know what, we're gonna smoke the dog shit out of you. And when I mean smoke the dog shit out of you, is basically physical training. So basically push-ups, sit-ups. You have different exercises that we do. And it'd be a variety of those that would be used in multiple sessions or in the same session. And they would just do that. And it would just be like, you know what? I woke up in a bad mood today. Left, right. You go, turn at the angle, position of attention, move, front leaning rest position, move, which is the push up position. And then they just made you do push ups till you didn't feel your arms. You do come out a lot stronger because I will say that was one of the times I was the most physically fit, I will say. Because it depends on how you take it, and it's basically like your mentality. When you're there, you do think about it, and you had the I made a mistake moment when you're doing it. You have that I made a mistake. What the fuck did I get myself into? Should I have done this? Why am I here? Why did I decide to do this? And you have that you just have that moment, and I believe everybody when they join has that moment cuz in basic training it's like you're not used to this. You're not used to having somebody in your face or somebody yelling at you like that, or you being told what to do when you got to do it. Hey, you move here, take pick like it's a different environment, but you have different things that you do there, and you build friendships that last a good amount of time because I still have a bunch of tons of the people that I went to basic training with that I still have them on Facebook, or it's not usually like a long conversation, but sometimes they'll be like, hey, what's up, man? Or somebody posts a picture of like the platoon or something like that, because I know I've done that a couple of times, and people are like, man, where'd you get that picture? And I have that picture. I actually have it in my room, and I have it like framed up, and that's something that I just have there. But you go through different training. Most of the biggest problem you have is sleep. Really, is like you falling asleep because either you dehydrated, which hey, take a knee, drink water. You'll hear that probably a bunch of times throughout this podcast, because it would just be like, hey, take a knee, drink water. You falling asleep, drink more water. And you're like, what? What? It was like you don't, it's like you don't understand it, and then it does kind of make sense because the thing is like they know you're dehydrated. Because the thing is you're physically exerting yourself more than usual. You're up more than usual. You're doing a lot more than you usually do. So when you're dehydrated, your body just gets tired. So literally, it'd be like you'd be in class and you're just dozing and dozing. Cruz, I was like, oh, yes, Josiah. And then you'd be like, half right. You're like, oh shit. Then you start pushing. So it was like that. So it made you try to learn discipline and stuff because they would tell you, hey, if you fall asleep, stand up. Basically like, hey, avoid yourself falling asleep because sometimes you just couldn't control it because you were so tired. And then they had what they call fire guard, which to this day I still don't understand it, but it was a headache. But basically what happens is you're living in an open bay. So our bay was all guys, open bay. There was about maybe like 30 of us in this bay, and we're there, but somebody has to pull guard on like the door, on the front door, back door, making sure nobody tries to leave, nobody tries to exit. And then the drill sergeants would be either downstairs or in the office as a staff duty, making sure nothing happens. So in case somebody tries to hurt themselves or tries to hurt someone else or something like that, they would be on call basically for those 24 hours while they were there. But you had people within the bay because the bay doors would be locked. So there was no getting out of those bay doors. It would be locked and you would have people just watching it. So the shifts were like sometimes it was like every 2 hours or something like that. Depending on how to do it, sometimes it was like every hour. So it was like they made it so that you wouldn't get consistent sleep. Cause you were like, hey, it's your turn on fire guard. So you literally go, if you see videos of people, it's just like days in basic training, like where they're having a great dream, and then it's just a flashlight in their face, like, hey, bruh, it's your turn. And you're like, what? Where am I? I was like, oh shit, I'm in basic training. And then you're like, oh damn. And then you realize that, and then you're just like, okay, I guess it's my turn to watch. So you do that, but you learn a lot from the different drill sergeants because each drill sergeant was different. All of them were different. For me, I would say I got lucky. I didn't get smoked. Those two times I got smoked by my drill sergeants, and one of them was because he was like disappointed and angry at the fact that we didn't complete something that you usually complete. It's called Nick at Night. For those who don't know what that is, Nick at Night is basically it's like a simulation of you crawling under gunfire. So basically, you hear the gunfire overhead and you hear it going off, and you're basically crawling through sand all the way from one end to the other with your gear and stuff. And he was highly disappointed because our platoon was the first platoon he said he ever had to deal with it, that they actually turned the lights on. So basically, this is pitch black environment. You can't really see in front of you that well. Literally, the whole purpose is, hey, get over this mound and crawl all the way over till you get to the end. And it got to the point where somebody was just like, I don't know if they got stuck or they were just like too like flustered that they couldn't go any further and they just stayed there. So they had to turn on the lights for the person to actually complete the course, which I think very upset him, and he just like smoked the dog shit out of us. Like he was so upset that most of the time they will tell you like take off your gear. You know, you have your IOTV, which is like your plates. You got plates in the front and the back. You have your flick, which usually has like gear, like magazines and stuff like that. Your water canteen, and you have that. And then from there it's just like he just smoked the dog shit out of people. We were there for like a good 20 minutes after the whole thing, and he was just like the half jack, push-ups, sit-ups, everything. And some people got their gear off, some didn't. There was one that was like complaining and crying most of the time because his zipper did not work. It got stuck. So while everybody was able to like while they were working out, end up stripping down and throwing something off, he did all of that shit with it on and he could not get out of it. So that sucked for him. Interesting, but it sucked for him. But there was many experiences with those drill sergeants. The drill sergeants are they're put in that position for a reason. Some of them are not all that great, but you still learn. The ones that are the best ones are the ones that actually care to try to teach you how to become a soldier. And I think I lucked out with those two because those two helped lead me in a way to become a better soldier and a better leader myself. Just because of the way they went about things. They explained it to you and they told you like, hey, I can smoke you all I want. All that does is make you stronger. What I need you to be able to do is think for yourself, be analytical, be observant, be able to teach, and just be smarter. I don't need you to be stronger because anybody can get stronger. I need you to be able to think for yourself, which is it's confusing at the same time because the military has that structure where it's, hey, you're being told what you have to do and stuff like that. The times have changed. It's not as, I don't say, it's not like it used to be. It's changed a lot. It's more people are more, some are open-minded, some are still closed-minded, but the attitude towards things has changed because, you know, policies and the regulations that we have changed when it comes to like smoking people, which you can't do anymore, because that was a way of corrective training, where they would just smoke the dog shit out of you. One of the drill sergeants, I forget what it was, somebody did, and we ended up low crawling 3 to 5 second rushes in a like sand pit. This sand pit had rocks, not like large rocks, but it's like when you do 3 to 5 second rushes, it's literally they see you, you're up. They don't see you. What is it? They don't see you, you're up. They see you, you're down. So basically, for 3 seconds, you're up and you're running forward. Oh, they see you, you dropping down, like throwing yourself down, and you're waiting. Up again, 3 seconds, run, drop down, 2 seconds. And you keep on doing that. And he had us doing that back and forth. People ended up with like bloody elbows, bloody knees, like scratches on their legs and all that stuff. Cause it sucked. And he actually felt bad afterwards because he saw like people were like scratched up. People had like blood going through their uniform and stuff like that. So he actually felt remorse for doing that, but it was like, I'm gonna teach y'all a lesson. And the other one, basically the other time that we got like smoked the dog shit out of, was our one of the drill sergeants. So if y'all don't know, when you go through basic training and you go into the cafeteria, you're basically standing back to back with somebody. Like you're right on top of them, basically. Which they used to say like nut to butt. Can't say that anymore because that's a very derogatory way of going about it. But that's how they would call it basically. And you were literally like back to back with people, like just waiting on the line. So when you're on this line, you're basically at the position of attention. When you're in the position of attention, you're not supposed to speak. So basically, all these people were lined up in the cafeteria waiting to get to the place to eat a tray, and you would have to stand quietly. So usually, what they would do is whoever was like the last couple of people, they would grab them, and those would be the servers. So whoever was at the back, who was like, "Hey, y'all gonna be the servers," they would send them all the way to the front, and those were the people that would serve the soldiers food and stuff like that. Which usually allowed you to get a bit more extra food sometimes because you served yourself. People would just try to plop whatever they could on because they basically limited it to it. You had an ice cream machine, you couldn't touch the ice cream machine, and that was the biggest thing. Like on a hot ass day, some ice cream would be amazing, but they made sure you didn't do that. So you're there quiet, you're standing and you're filtering in, you're walking through step by step, and you're supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to talk. So at one point, one of the drill sergeants were on the line and he catches people talking. Cause it's like three different phases. There's white phase, blue phase, and red phase. I can't remember what order they were in. But you go through that and basically you get a bit more freedom, I would say, as you progress, because basically you've completed certain things. Like you do the grenade range, you go to the firing range, they teach you how to shoot, you shoot, and you continue doing that stuff. But as you go, it's a bit more lenient. It's still disciplined, but you get more leniency going forward because it's like you're becoming a soldier now. So you got the stuff, you understand that. But you're not supposed to talk when you're on that chow line. So you're on the chow line, and he ran up and he was like, "Oh, so we having a conversation. What we talking about? Oh, y'all don't want to say? No, it's okay. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Keep talking." I was like, "Hey, everyone. So and so's having a conversation over here. Yeah. Matter of fact, y'all can all start talking. Go ahead. I don't even care no more. Just everybody go ahead, start talking. Y'all want ice cream today? You know what? Y'all can go get ice cream today too." And everybody's like, man, they say that, and it's just like it's your first time like being able to talk in the line. So you start chatting up, man. I tell you this and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, you get ice cream," and it was just like, "We get ice cream." Everybody was on that line getting ice cream. Because the thing is when you sit down at the child line, when you sit down, you get 15 minutes or less, 10 minutes or less. Some people got like 5 minutes at times. You need to eat your food and you're up and out, up and out, up and out. You sit down, boom. you're destroying your food as quickly as possible. You get it up and you go. Because then after one point, because I think they gave, I think it was like 10 minutes at the point of, or 15 minutes after the first person sat down, or 5 minutes after the last person sat down. I can't really remember exactly how they did it. But basically, you had to scarf your food down as quickly as possible. Man, you learned how to eat so fast. Like, you look like a kid that has never gotten food before, and you just sit down at a plane, you just destroy the thing, and the whole thing is gone within minutes. If you spoke, if they caught you talking, oh, you done eating. Boom, you up and you got to throw away your food. Even if you ate or not, you had to get up and throw away your food. So basically, if you didn't eat because you decided to say something or somebody caught you saying something, you literally had to take your plate and go, and you were on the move, and that was it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we go back, and after, man, everybody ate good. Everybody's just like, oh, we're stuffed now. We're good to go. And we go back, and he's like, oh, so remember all them conversations y'all were having? And we're like, oh shit, he was fucking with us. And we didn't realize that till he smoked the dog shit out of us for like a good hour and a half, 2 hours or something. Just push-ups, sit-ups, the mountain climber, half jacks, the 8 count push-up. Which the 8 count push-up, if y'all get the chance, just look it up. I can't even explain that. That thing is a workout. And trust me, he smoked us that day. We smoked, he was like, okay, cool. So funny thing is someone made a complaint. One of the soldiers made a complaint about that drill sergeant smoking the dog shit out of us, because there was people throwing up ice cream, throwing up food, because everybody decided it was like, hey, he's letting us be, let get some freedom. Yeah, we gonna eat. We're gonna get some good amount of food. We're gonna get some ice cream. Man, there was people throwing up all over the place. It was disgusting. That Bayful was disgusting afterwards. And somebody made a complaint about it. So I guess the first sergeant commander, and he was like, okay, come the next day. It's him again. He goes and he's like, he calls everybody to attention, and he's like, hey man, I want to say I apologize for what happened yesterday. I guess I was too harsh on y'all. I don't know if it was the day after or something like that. It was like I was too hard on y'all and stuff like that. I want to apologize. I was like, oh, we're gonna make it up. We're gonna go eat. You're gonna get some ice cream. We're gonna have, cause the thing is by regulation, when you smoke somebody, you're only allowed to do that exercise for 10 repetitions. So basically, if he makes us do the push up, he can only make us do 10 push ups. We cannot do more than that. We're not supposed to. He can switch it to a different exercise, but he's not supposed to do more than 10 of any exercise. So that's where I referenced the 8 count push up. So same thing, went to the chow hall, went, ate, everybody ate good and stuff like that. So everybody's like, yeah, he got in trouble. So that's why he's trying to be nice. And that man didn't give, he gave no fucks. When we got back after chow, he smoked us again. But he kept it within the 10 repetitions. Because basically he could only keep the repetitions. So the 8 count push-up, I'll try to explain it as it's 8 counts. So your first count, you're standing. Second count, you go into like a squatting position, like a frog position, basically. Third, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Damn, I forgot how to. I forgot how to. It's been so long since I do it. But basically, you start standing, you drop down, you get into the position, the push-up position. You do 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, you do 2 push-ups. Hold on, I'm really forgetting how to do it right now. I'm gonna have to get this to you. I have to get this to you. But it's an 8 count push-up. So you do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you do that all in motion. 7 and 8 being the position where you come back and you go up. So basically, the 1, 2, 1, 2 is that, 3, 4 is push-ups, 5, 6 is push-ups, 7, 8 you get up. There we go. So I got it. So basically, and then at the end of 8, you would say 1, because that's 1 repetition. So basically, it's like you're dropping down, doing the 2 push-ups, getting back up, standing up, 1. Then the count starts over, 1, 2, 3, and you go down, you do the 2, and you get up. So he decided he was going to be within the regulation, but tweak it just a little. So basically, like I said, you count from 1 to 8, and then when you get to 8, the amount of repetitions, that's the number you say at the end. So what this man did was, he was like, oh, okay. since I could only do 10 push-ups at each, we gonna do the 8 count push-up. And everybody's like, 8 count push-up. It's like, it's not too bad if you're doing 10 of them. But when you're doing that shit for good 20, 30 minutes, your arms is dead. And literally he just went 1, 2. So 1, 2 is getting down and kicking your legs out to be in a position of tension. So he did that for a bit. 1, 2, 1, 2. And we were like, oh shit, we see what he's doing. He's gonna keep on doing this variation till he gets to 1, and then he's gonna say 1. He was like, oh, don't worry, we only got 9 more to go. And we were like, holy fucking shit. So it was literally doing like leg kicks out, front back, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Then it was a 3, 4, 3, 4, and you're doing push-ups. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. Let y'all rest for a bit. 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 4, 3, 4, 3. And you're like, Jesus Christ. And he did that. We got smoked the dog shit out of it. That's the least I'll say. And I think if I have anybody on any of these episodes as a guest that was there, I know they remember that smoking. Because that's the one smoking I think everybody would not have forgotten that we all went through. Because each platoon had their own thing, but that was one thing there. So also one thing that went through in basic training, it was a different experience for me because I lost my brother while I was in basic training, which was a difficult situation. I'm not entirely sure how I made it through basic or with the right state of mind, but I think it was like on a decision of myself to go through with it because like I tell people the experience. It was just like there was one time we were at the chow hall. We went and we were there. We spoke, and one of the soldiers comes up to me and he's just like, "Hey man, drill sergeants want to see you." So whenever you hear a drill sergeant wants to see you, you have to have a battle buddy because it's a battle buddy system in the military where you always have somebody with you. Wherever you're going, somebody is always with you. You will not be caught anywhere by yourself during basic training. If they still do that, I'm not sure. I'm gonna need to confirm that. I need to ask questions of these newer soldiers, see if they still do that. But the battle buddy, they were with you. So I get told that, and I'm like, okay. I was like, hey, you want to come in me? He was like, no, you don't need anybody. So what the fuck did I do? That's the first thing that pops in your mind. Like, what did somebody else do, or what did I do that they need to talk to me by myself? And I'm like, shit. So I go with my tray. I have my tray. I go. I walk over to the table, and I'm at parade rest, a position of parade rest, like to be addressed by. He said, "No, man, just have a seat." Have a seat. I'm like, hold on, there's nothing but fucking drill sergeants here, and I'm gonna sit with the drill sergeants. I'm like, this cannot be good. So I sit down, and drill sergeant Ezedine's like, hey, sorry about what happened, stuff like that. I was just like, I'm like, sorry about what? He's like, huh? I'm like, yeah, what are you sorry about? I was, what are you talking about? And that like it was like more, I wasn't like in the mentality of the military at that point because he was just talking to me like a regular person. I'm like, they never did that. They did do that. Like my drill sergeants did talk to us like regular people because we had like little sessions and stuff where they would just like sit down and be like, "Hey, ask me questions," and we would just ask questions and they would just answer us to give us like whatever we had in mind or wanted to know. So we go from there. He's just like, oh my never mind, forget about it. I'm sorry. I'm like, and I'm so confused because he like stops in his tracks like, oh shit, he doesn't know. I'm like, fuck. He was like, oh, we got to take you to first sergeant. I was like, you done eating? I was like, yeah. And then so he's like, I'm being taken to the first sergeant's office, which you don't see the first sergeant. You don't talk to the first sergeant. You don't even look that man's way. So they take me into the office, and I'm in the office, and I basically get first sergeant is there with his phone, and he hands me the phone, and I'm like confused, and then it's just like it's just my mom crying on the phone, and she's just like crying hysterically, and she's just like, yeah, they found your brother dead, and I really didn't know how to process that at the time because it was just like I was so into like basically my mindset had went from I fucked up by joining this, like what the fuck was I thinking, to you know what, I can do this. My mentality has switched to that point where it's just like, you know what, I can do this, I can complete this. and then you just get hit with that news. And it became difficult to understand that and see that, because it was just like I didn't know what to do, how to react, like where to be. It was just a very dark day. Cause they basically told me, it's like, hey man, if you want to go back to the funeral, you can go back for a couple of days. Just go for the thing. We won't recycle you, because usually if you missed a couple of days or certain trainings, they would recycle you and you would start the whole process over with a whole nother thing. So they basically were like, hey man, don't worry. We'll try to get you into like another company, like, cause I think it was like I don't know if it was the grenade launch or something like that. It was something important, like something that you have to do to graduate. And it was like, yeah, you'll do this. If you can't make it back on time, or if you're not here on time, we'll make sure to get you into another thing so you don't restart the whole thing. Cause I was doing pretty good. I was one of the leaders, I guess you could say, because I was old. I knew stuff, and I was able to teach people and mentor people that were just like young kids. Like I said, they were kids. Me being an older adult that has some life experience, it allowed me to do that. So it was just a different experience with that. And then knowing that, I made the decision not to go back home and not to go to the funeral. Cause I knew my mentality was not gonna tolerate it. I knew that if I had decided to go back home and witness my family crying, and the loss of my brother, seeing my brother, it would have torn down that strength I built being in the thing. So I decided to decline off after that. And then after that, I was basically put on suicide watch. Not for me, not for me. It was for another soldier. But I think what they did was, it was like they said it was suicide watch, but I think it was so that the other soldier watched me. Not because I was suicidal, but just because it's a very tough spot to lose somebody and not be there. Not be there for your family, not be there for that moment to, lay your brother to rest and stuff like that. It's a very tough moment. And it was difficult for me, and I think that's why they said the guy was on suicide watch, so they had me watch him. But I think he was like watching me, because we had a conversation. I'm like, bro, this dude ain't trying to kill himself. I'm like, I've been around people that have been suicidal, and this dude is not. He's out the faking it because he wants to get out the army. Because some people did do that just to get out the army. They played the suicide card to like get out, like, oh, I'm suicidal, or mental, or like how some soldiers don't even make it through basic training, but they end up with post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll get to that on another point. But yeah, I think it was him just watching me to make sure, like, okay, are you good? Are you doing okay? Kind of thing. And then I just went through basic training the rest of the way, and it was just like I put my all into it to forget the loss, because it was a tough period. To that next week, it was tough, because it was just like trying to concentrate on being a soldier and becoming a soldier, and then dealing with the other portion of it, which is just your head spinning with all these questions, family, knowing how they're doing, and stuff like that. And then not having phone calls. Like I said, you got two phone calls. That was basically the third phone call I got, but it was for emergency reasons. Otherwise, you don't get those phone calls. I would have never gotten that middle phone call, but since it was like a Red Cross message, basically, basically saying like my brother had passed, and that's the only way that you communicate. Basically, with soldiers, like me being out here in Germany, if there was something that happened to my family, it would be a Red Cross message, which is the Red Cross sending the information here, and you usually get like emergency leave. And it usually gets paid for you to go back when it's an emergency situation like that. But yeah, that influenced me to become better and more dedicated to becoming a soldier. And I went through it, and I ended up being the soldier leader of the cycle, which is basically from our whole company of 100 plus people. I ended up being designated the leadership award, I guess, because I led people. I've always been, I say, decent at leading. Not gonna say great, because believe I'm been great at leading in certain scenarios, but I've been decent at it. I've mentored a lot, And I did that through basic training because it was just like I said, it was dealing with kids. Some kids didn't have that situation and stuff like that. So they didn't know any better. They didn't realize that they didn't see what was going on. But that would be the best way of explaining that. But yeah, ended up graduating soldier leader of the cycle, and then from there, I was a soldier, PFC, private first class cruise. And then from there, the story begins in Fort Riley, Kansas. Good old Manhattan, Ogden, Junction City, in the middle of Kansas. But yeah, so this will conclude episode one, which is the introduction, basically, of the cruise talks of the military and of vast topics. We will conclude it by saying we are on YouTube. We will be on Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcast, and we'll just be pushing forward with this. And I hope to see you for the next episode. This concludes the episode. We'll check you out the next time. Appreciate you.